Well, imagine you've grown up in an abusive household. Perhaps your father abused you in some way. Well, that trauma affected your confidence so much that it meant that the cycle of abuse continued into your adulthood. And you had a string of abusive partners. Well, how would you escape? How would you find safety? Well, today my agent of influence has not only done that, but it's been turned on its head. She now helps others. Please welcome Becs Hastings.
Hello, thank you, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Becs. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You're not too nervous, are you?
I'm okay.
It's cool. So before we go on, I just need to talk about something. If you want to win a prize on the Agents of Influence podcast, that's really easy. If you look on the Facebook post, you'll be able to see a list of prizes that you could potentially win, and that you could win that by listening out for the number on the next 3 podcasts of the Agents of Influence. That's episode 2, 3 and 4, and each one will give a number. And that number, when put together and messaged to me, will put you in the hat to win a prize of your choice from the list that is available on the post. And this week on episode 2, the number is 2. The number is 2. Solihull Radio. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where does it all start? Because you said that there's been some abuse back there, hasn't there?
Yeah, so I grew up in what I can only describe as a very split household. I had my dad, or my father, who was abusive emotionally, psychologically, sexually, and then my mum, who was amazing. He was abusive to her, would put her down, very controlling. So me and my sisters, we grew up in a, like I said, a very split home. And if it wasn't for my mum, I'm sure we would all not be where we are now.
So did that happen to all of you or just yourself?
There was 2 of us that were involved in the sort of sexual abuse, but we were all subjected to this horrible feeling that something at any point could go horribly wrong in the house.
Yeah. And so how did that affect your wider childhood? Did that affect forming relationships or anything like that?
I was a very quiet, very shy child. I felt a lot of shame, which I didn't identify to what was going on in the home as a child. I thought it was because we didn't live in the biggest house and have the poshest car. That's what I thought was the shame, but it was obviously all related to my father, looking back.
And so has your father stayed in a relationship with you for the whole of your life, or has that changed over time?
Yeah, no, he had numerous affairs, and when my younger sister was just about to do her GCSEs, my mum discovered another one and said to him, when these exams are over, you're leaving, that's it, I'm done with your affairs. Just before her exams were about to start, the police knocked at the door. Apparently he'd been spying on his latest girlfriend, who was an adult but looked about 16. And that was really the last time we had anything to do with him. When my mum divorced him, when the divorce came through, my one sister sort of talked about her abuse, and then we ended up, there was a lot of mental health issues, self-harming, suicide attempts over the years. And eventually, when everybody was strong enough, we sent him to prison. And we've not had any contact with him at all until very recently, actually.
So he's tried to make contact?
He's tried to make contact over the years, yeah, even when he was on licence and not able to contact us. He would try, just showing an absolute disregard for everything that he'd ever done, total lack of empathy for any damage that he's done. And we actually, just a few weeks ago, had a phone call to say that he was very poorly, and we made a decision to go and visit him in hospital to sort of say our goodbyes and release him from everything that he'd ever done.
So this was a release for you as opposed to
yeah. I mean, we talk about forgiveness, and it's a really difficult concept because we think about forgiveness as forgiving what the other person has done in terms of condoning it. And that's not the case. We don't forgive to condone, we forgive to release ourselves. And actually, it felt like it was the end of my healing journey because I was able to sit with him and see him as somebody that was very poorly and realise actually how far I'd come and know that the stuff that I teach actually works.
All right, we'll come to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
Was there any support that was given to you, or apart from your mum, did school, your friends, your wider family know anything about it, or was it all very secretive?
Very secretive. My father was a very clever man. He isolated my mum from her friends, her surroundings, her neighbours, and it certainly wasn't contained within the house. There were friends of mine that I later learnt he'd exposed himself to or tried inappropriate things with. There were neighbours, aunties, cousins, but he isolated my mum so much that nobody ever felt that they could speak to her about it. So it was a widespread. I would go so far as to say he's probably sociopath.
Yeah, it sounds very much like it to me. So you did very well with yourself academically after that, didn't you? Where did you take your childhood next?
Yeah, and I think that was probably all credit to my mum for the love and the nurturing and the complete unconditional love that we had from her. At school, I was always top student in the top sets pretty much. So there was never any behavioural issues. I was never a troubled child.
Was that related to the abuse in some ways? There's like an over-perfection that there needed to be?
Yeah, for me, I was very clear from a very young age that there was no way I was staying in this life and I was going to get out of it and I was going to change things for me.
So determination?
Yes.
So you're a law graduate, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a law graduate. I'm a qualified lawyer. I didn't go to university at 18 because I didn't have any guidance, really. And I went to university a little bit older, did a psychology degree, got a first-class degree, was fast-tracked straight onto my doctorate, and then switched to law.
You're stunning. You're an inspiration. You're just absolutely a phenomenal person.
Thank you.
But the abuse didn't stop, did it? How it continued into adulthood? What sort of happened there?
Yeah, so when you are abused as a child, it goes to the very core of you, and that as a heterosexual woman with an abusive father, you are never taught how somebody should teach you, how somebody should treat you. So you go on and you perpetuate that abuse with other partners. The broken part in me would connect with the broken part in these men. And through my 20s, I had a string of abusive relationships because I didn't know how to be treated and I basically didn't love myself.
Mm. And was it a very similar format to your father?
Emotional, psychological, physical as well, physical abuse. But yes, the put-downs, the control, all of the same, yeah.
So at what point did it a light come on that something needed to change? How did that happen? So
that happened when I had my daughter, became a mum for the first time. I looked at this tiny little creature, and at the time I was married, which was not a healthy relationship. It was emotionally unhealthy. And I just looked at her and I thought, no, this is not happening again. I have to role model for you what I wanted for me, and I know this relationship isn't healthy, and I need to get out of it. And that was the start, really, for me. I then started psychotherapy with an incredible counsellor who made me understand all about boundaries and how any abuse in childhood just goes straight to the core of you. I then started my yoga journey. So I'd done bits and pieces of yoga over the years. And before I became a mum, I was always in the gym, out every night in the gym or running or doing whatever. And then all of a sudden I had a baby. My husband worked evenings. I didn't feel comfortable leaving her with him anyway. So I needed a physical outlet, and it wasn't the gym anymore. So I started doing yoga hours every night when she was in bed. From there, I decided I wanted to train as a yoga teacher, and that was really the start of my journey, the real true healing. So
that's a complete contrast to what you were, the original trajectory you were going down, sort of law, that sort of thing, to something very, very holistic, if that makes sense. Yeah. What were the benefits for you, would you say?
Well, I did a full 2-year course, yoga teacher training course, with an incredible teacher, and I learned the full classical, philosophy of yoga, which to non-yogis I describe as there's the yamas and niyamas, which are the 10 commandments. So it's how you treat the world, it's how you treat yourself. And it was such a journey over that couple of years. At the time, I was still going through a divorce. But it was my absolute saviour.
So have you tried that with your family and your children? Because I know that the previous relationships have affected your children in some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say the effect on them has been positive, because although me and their dad are not together anymore, because I was able to, I'm a conscious parent, and because I now have learnt to love myself, I model. I mean, there's a lot of mom guilt to start with, you know, as lots of moms will identify with. My mom was very much a home bird. And for me, things like wanting a career, wanting a business, wanting to go out with friends, do things for me was a real mental struggle. But actually, I had to think to myself, do I want my daughter, when she is, and my son, when she is an adult, to become this martyr? And my answer was very firmly no. And therefore, I need to model what I hope for them in the future, which is loving myself, taking care of myself, and having healthy friendships, relationships, and most importantly with me.
So you've taken the yoga, haven't you, to not only help yourself, your children, but also you started to, your business has grown out of this, and you start helping other women as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I work with women who've got, primarily so far work with women who've come from either domestic abuse relationships or childhood abuse.
So how did that first client come about? Was you actively seeking a customer, or was it almost accidental?
I actively went out and saw. I just put, through Facebook, through coaching groups, I spoke to women, talked about my story, and said I wanted to work with women. I teach techniques that change you physiologically, that change you at a cellular level. They're all content free. So the women that I work with are not at crisis point. They know what's happened to them. They're no longer in that zone where they are in absolute crisis. They've moved on from that, but they know that they're not healed. So, that's how it sort of started, just from communicating with people via social media.
Are they women from all walks of life, or are they primarily business professionals? How's that work?
Most of the women I work with are entrepreneurs. Because they are striving for something. They have a wish, a desire to change their lives and build a better life for them and their children. And they know there's something holding them back, and it's often a fear. When you're abused in childhood, you live your whole life from a place of fear. Every decision you make, whether it's related to your food, your choices about people, going out, it's all from a negative, sort of restricted place. So that is how I've begun to work with the female entrepreneurs, is because they are striving to make their world bigger and better.
So how does it feel knowing that you're creating so much good and so much positivity? There must be a sort of a knock-on benefit for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I feel passionately about being able to support these women. Of course, it's rewarding for me to see women go from being afraid, scared, little, to being able to step out of themselves and become powerful in their own right and rulers of their own queendom, is amazing.
So presumably people can come in and learn from you, even if they haven't come from a background of domestic abuse?
Yes, absolutely. Everything that I teach is relevant for everybody. It's unlikely to find anybody that hasn't got some sort of limiting beliefs or negative thoughts about themselves.
Yeah.
Everything I teach is applicable to everybody. It's just with the people from a traumatic background, there's just a bit more sensitivity.
There's a need there as well.
Yeah, another level, yeah.
So where's this business going in the future?
So for me, so I've started obviously with women. I would like to work more with teenage girls. Obviously, I have a son as well now, and that opened my eyes and made me look at the world in a different, from a different perspective as well. I think we do live in a old-fashioned patriarchal society, which actually doesn't serve anybody anymore. For men as well, they want a more fluid lifestyle. They want to have portfolio careers. The pressure should not be all on them. That has been over the years, and that is where I would like to take it. I'm not sure if I am the right person to work with men, and there are men out there doing great work now. But yes, women, children, men, everybody. Let's heal the world.
So just you versus everything.
Yes.
It's not just yoga, though, isn't it? You're into herbal medicines as well, and you sort of branched out into that as well.
Yeah, so I've recently started working with clients. Clients have sort of incorporated a blend of herbal product in which helps to stimulate our natural healing abilities. So it just fast tracks. So in yoga, we believe that we have an energy body as well as our physical body, and any illnesses start in our energy body, and they are caused by things like trauma, psychological, emotional issues. Eventually, if we don't heal them at that point, they show up as physical problems. Things like sort of ME, fibromyalgia, all sorts of illnesses. I mean, you know, I suffer. I know if there's something that I need to say, I start to get a sore throat. There's lots of ways that the body shows the trauma that we are feeling and haven't dealt with. So these herbal blends that I use now just help to fast track that healing on a physical basis.
This is inspirational stuff. There must be a book in it.
There is a book.
There is a book.
There's half a book. There's half a book written, but there will be a book, yes. And maybe I should come and speak to the Solihull Writers Group.
By sheer fluke, we've weaved something together here. Well, looking back at it, sort of coming full circle, you must look back with some pride or other feelings about all your sort of the story of your life in many ways. Yeah,
I think you go on your healing journey. You go through periods of thinking, you know, why has this happened to me? Why? But actually, you realise that this is the reason I'm here. I've gone through this to help other people and make the world a better place.
Thank you very much. So if you were talking to someone who'd make a stress like me or anybody else here, is there a piece of advice, a nugget that we could take away?
The single best thing you can do for yourself is to set your alarm 10 minutes early, sit up in bed and meditate.
Just thank you very much. And so how do we get in touch with you if we really want your support?
You can find me on Facebook, Becs Hastings 1111, or Wear Your Crown in the group is the group. So look for Wear Your Crown.
Thank you very much, Becs. That's wonderful. She has been an inspirational agent of influence for here on Solihull Radio. Thank you very much for clicking in and listening. We're back to the Solihull Writers in just a minute.